call to order the Thursday, January 18th meeting of the Underhill Planning Commission. Does anyone have any additions to the agenda? No one? Okay. Is there any public comment? No one from the public is here. So it's you. Okay, did everyone get a chance to review the 21 minutes that I sent around? Does anyone have any comments on them?
No.
Just checking. Yeah, we have enough people we have a quorum. Can I get a motion to approve the 12:21 minutes?
So moved.
Oh, Bart, David, second. All in favor? Thank you. Unfortunately, Amanda said she was going to print out the Excel file that Penny sent that I had flipped into a PDF for her, but I don't see it.
Amanda was out today.
Oh, I wonder if that's.
File was sick.
Oh, I bet that's what happened.
You're at the head of the table.
I have a copy.
That does make it tricky.
I looked for a copy.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find, I didn't have it.
Maybe we could
Some scratchings on there.
Maybe I'll photocopy it real quick. There you go. Thank you, David.
Yeah, that's not the one that Penny sent.
It's not.
No, that's
Is this
old.
the new one?
No, that's
But I can perhaps send something to Brad and have him print it from his house here. We've done that before if you want to give that.
Can't you just send it to like one of us or
Do you have a connection to the printer?
no, you don't need a connection to the printer.
To print it?
I don't know, I printed, well, maybe you would because you're doing it from, but we could at least have it on a PDF in front of a computer.
This was printed
You can also
on January 2nd.
Yeah, that's not it.
Not the right
That's
one.
not
You can
it.
also log
File
into
date
the
is-
Google Sheet.
2816.
I can send a link.
Oh, can you, my problem is I'm not on the internet here, but,
You can.
or I'm not on the internet. I'm not in my email. I wonder if I could just get in my email somehow.
Do you want to just read them one at a time if you can't print it?
It's 25.
Yeah, but if we just go down the list, could we?
I've only fleshed out 8 of them.
Yeah, maybe we'll go through them. So I have it here in my email. Okay. This is not ideal, but sorry, everyone. I sent them over to print. Can you forward it to all of us?
Yeah, just forward it to us now.
Yes. Actually, I haven't. Yeah, I can forward, because I put it in a PDF to send it to Amanda. So yeah, 1 second.
Anybody apply for the job yet?
I keep telling them to pull the sandwich board sign in, don't advertise it for a month and then put it back out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, last time I've seen applications, they were like, they're a cashier at Jolly's and they want the job, they have no experience,
Yeah,
so.
it's frustrating.
Trying to find it.
That person will stay
Oh,
for
Brian?
5 years,
Oh,
10 years.
sorry.
Yeah, right.
It's not the one I sent you. You made
No,
a
it's okay.
PDF.
Yeah, Amanda asked me to turn it into a
Gotta be on
PDF.
I can always create a
So we either
PDF.
hire somebody with no experience and you train them, or we hire somebody with experience and we
It's gonna
do
be
this
for a
again in
year.
2 years.
Yeah, right.
Just annoying that I can't get it to go up in my email.
I can try to.
You can see me sending it to her. It says, please see attached. But
Maybe it was an attachment. That's why she didn't have to print it.
No, she told me she got it. She replied back.
Well,
Sorry, everybody.
you know what? I can.
Hi, Sandy.
Sandy.
Yeah.
How you doing,
Give me
Sandy?
a minute.
Can I try something?
Yeah,
Our
please do.
our soda? Oh, yeah, our soda too. I didn't know that.
Yeah, right in here. Down toward the Tisberts on Mike Timbers.
Okay. Oh, the house right behind his?
Yes.
No kidding.
What?
It's a nice house.
Signed in.
I always assumed that was a rental.
Yeah, okay, so here we go.
Is it, or do you own it?
Well, he does have a rental right behind his house, but our driveway goes out beyond his house.
Okay, you've got that long driveway.
Right.
You can't see your house because it's in the woods.
It's kind of
How's business?
on the edge of the field, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that. bar.
Okay.
Use that standard instead of an-
well, there's nothing for sale in Underhill.
Yeah.
Jason's house is for sale, it's under deposit now.
Did you list that?
I did not, he listed it with a,
Yeah.
it's
How long
called,
is your drive?
flat fee.
Oh,
So what they pay that person that's supposed to fee to put it into the multiple listing system.
Right.
Jason took a big hit buying that house, that one he bought on
I know,
Chapel.
auto,
Because
that's,
he
I mean, how
paid
far
cash,
is
so he
it?
took it out of an account, so
Or
that
settled
shows his income. So he's gonna pay income on that, he's gonna pay big tax on that. So my point was that,
Oh, you mean he didn't sell it before he bought the other one?
doesn't matter, he still took out, yeah, right,
Ah,
wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Oh, that
But,
wouldn't
so he's selling this now, so he
Yeah.
doesn't wanna pay a big
Yeah.
commission, cause he's already putting out a lot
I
of
never
money.
remember that farmer's name.
So it took a while to sell, so
No,
it ended up being
Farm.
someone from
Right.
our South
It's his
Burlington
words.
office. He called me up, he goes,
Is that
hey,
his
can
name?
you tell me?
I'm in
I
it.
said,
Yeah, I'm not in it yet.
Just up the hill from that.
He got hammered
I
against.
showed around the neighborhood, it's a great
Yeah,
place,
okay.
and talked to him
So he
about it,
puts
and he asked about the price, and what
And
else, and I kind
He
of
just
gave him
fixed
some
up that
ideas
one
on what
across
to
the road
do.
from his house.
And he
exactly.
put it on deposit.
Gone.
Yeah, that's
Did
devastating.
he ever sell his lot?
Oh,
Just,
No.
he's
he
gonna
still
have
has
to go with a heavy frame.
So
all right.
So
He paid much more for that.
yeah,
That's
so
what he
it's gonna
did.
hold up. Those
Okay,
ones
so now we just
go-
have to figure out how to do that. Go back to go to
He
meeting.
paid like
Yeah,
$125.
which is one-
Yeah,
I said,
the glass alone would be.
We got it here too.
Yeah.
Off of Moose Run,
Yeah, all those greenhouses. with-
Beautiful.
Hammered by the way.
Sandy, do you remember how to do this? Didn't we do this
I'd
without
look at
waiting
probably
just
three
last
different
week?
people.
Yeah, I know.
It's really here.
Well, if no one's online, then it works fine.
it's long driveway, long driveway. That's its biggest
Oh,
problem.
yeah, no one's
But he
online.
hasn't really
It's
marketed
only
it for
when you're
sale
online.
yet.
Yeah,
Your house doesn't swirl?
Yeah, how come,
No, it just comes.
gotta be the right person.
why is it not sharing it though?
How much
In,
is the barn?
in our house,
Someone with money,
You have to-
it hits all four sides of the house.
it was at
Not very often.
$7.99, it's under
But you
deposit
go in the
now.
woods and there's trees dropped in every direction.
Took a little,
Yeah.
a whole month.
Yeah,
We're fine. Yeah, thank you, Charlie. All right. Charlie is the hero of the evening. Yay, Charlie.
Next time I run into a technical issue with my computer, I'll give you a call.
No complaining, Lee. This is
I
as
can't
good as
see
it's gonna
that
get.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay.
So Brian, what I just did, I don't know if it's helpful or not, is I made a column to the left, you see that empty column, and I put an X in it for all of the items that are marked yellow, which are only, if you scroll down, you can see. Scroll down.
That was number one.
Yeah.
This is a weird key.
I think
Just scroll down.
you need to
Just scroll
put a
down.
one
So you see-
first.
Oh, hit a one there.
Or
Okay.
you can always back up,
Got
too, by the way, you can undo things.
Okay.
So if you scroll down with your scroll key, it's gonna take you through the 1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
maybe. Maybe it's not. There we go.
yeah.
So I have some that are yellow, and those are the ones that I fleshed out. So I had marked the X in a left column so that you could sort them and put all the yellows together. But if you're just scrolling through, you could just scroll through to the yellow ones, and then
Okay,
those are the ones that are completed.
okay.
You just hit
So the
finish.
yellow ones, we just keep going to the yellow ones.
So you get to the yellow. There's a
Wait,
yellow.
so number 6 is the first yellow.
Right.
Okay. So we're focusing on the yellow ones are the first ones you did, Penny?
They are the
Okay.
only ones that.
They're the only ones you did.
Yes.
Yep, sorry. Okay, do you want to guide us through them, or what's the best way to do this?
I'd be happy to. If you want to take them, do we just go through starting with the first yellow? Are
Sure.
you okay with that?
You probably should slide up here for the owl. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm COVID nervous these days, so I might put a mask on. If that's okay with everybody.
No, whatever makes you comfortable. I mean, I can also maybe slide this your way a little bit, Penny.
Yeah, why don't
Probably
you
not
slide it
supposed to
right down
do
by her?
that,
So I tried to reference actual pages in the regs. So I don't know if you have your regs or if it might be a little hard to pull it up at the same time. I have mine and I can read it, or maybe Charlie and I can do this together.
That's my point.
So the first issue is on barns, the first one that I fleshed out. So what this came up during a project, a hearing, that someone wanted to put a home industry in a barn, but wanted.
Is this the wedding venue?
Yes.
Okay.
So the question came up, a home industry can go in an accessory structure, and however, the definition says an accessory structure cannot be larger than the principal structure. So
Wait, an accessory structure can be larger than, an accessory dwelling unit can't be larger, but you can have a barn that's bigger than your house, right?
with the exception being a barn, Roy. So let's read accessory structure right now. Accessory structure use. A structure or use that is clearly incidental, customary, and subordinate in size and overall appearance, except for barns, to the principal structure or use of the land on the same lot. Example, in-ground pools, ponds, garages, storage sheds, playhouses, tree houses, barns, satellite dishes, etc. So the question, I guess the most basic question is, do you think that is a regulation that should stay like that? Accessory structure should be subordinate in size to the principal.
But you have except for barns.
That's right.
Okay.
Or if you feel that should remain that way, what is the definition of a barn? So let me just read what we've got here. So
Which page is that on?
the regulation is 189. The definition of accessory structure. So the question here is, should there continue to be a subordinate in size restriction in the definition of accessory structures? If yes, there is a barn exemption, which begs the issue, what is a barn? There is no definition of barn. Is barn a name? Is barn a use, like farming, or is it an aesthetic? So barns are farm structures, barns as farm structures. Whoop, I just lost it. Hold on 1 second. Are exempt from the subordinate in size requirements of accessory structures. That's 11.2 definitions. Can you build a new barn-looking structure unrelated to farming to receive a subordinate in size exemption under the definition? If not, and it has to be an existing farm structure, how old does it need to be? Is it used as a barn for how many months, how many years? Or if new, would it need to be an operating farm and be a new farm structure following the requirements of Vermont RAP? And you can see the definitions of Vermont RAP. That's requirements for agricultural practices. So here's an example. And I keep losing it. By the way, with these Google Sheets, if you ever want to look at it and it keeps flipping down, you just need to make the columns wider. So I can't really see on here because it keeps flipping by, but here's an example that Pete makes bats, and he wants to build a building, a barn-looking building on his property where he'll make his bats, and he wants to have a couple of batting cages for the public to come and use his bats, and it's for entertainment. He's got a little parking lot out there. He wants it to be a home industry. It would be a new structure, new barn-looking structure, up to commercial energy code. Could that be allowed? It's not under accessory structure right now for a home industry. It's a barn, so is it a barn? Could it be considered a barn so that he can build it? Or does he have to keep animals in it and farm implements in it?
You don't say anything about that, about barns, though.
I'm sorry?
None of it in here defines what a barn is.
None of it in where.
In our
legal
regs, in terms of accessory structure, a barn.
That's right, that's the problem.
I don't think it's a problem, but, okay.
Well, that's the problem.
It's a
So
problem. that
I'm representing what the DRB,
Yeah.
just a problem the DRB struggled with. So if it's a barn, does it mean, and we looked at the state definition of a barn, it's a farm structure that houses either a certain number of animals or certain this or certain that. So is that what it would have to be? So I just want to point you to the, so here, let's talk about some other, the other comments here, if I can pull that over. So there is an adaptive reuse of historic structures. So you can actually use a historic barn for, by our regulations, section 4.2, within a certain zoning districts or as a conditional use. But it has a lot of requirements in it that would be quite expensive. It has to have an architectural historian write a report on it. It has to be retrofitted to meet energy code. It has to have a structural integrity survey of it, and it has to follow the U.S. Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines. So my question, or our question is, I'm sort of noodling on it, posing the question, could you have a new energy efficient barn looking structure? Is a barn an aesthetic or a use? Could it be Jericho Market, something that looks like Jericho Market that you put on your land and you use it as a B&B, you use it as a home industry print shop, you use it as a home industry where you make bats and have a couple of batting cages, or not? Does it have to be a farm structure, this barn? Or do we go even back to the main reg of accessory structure and get rid of that needs to be subordinate in size?
Yeah, I get rid of that all day long. I'm thinking that this is way too confusing and that you can't have an accessory structure that's larger than your house. Is that correct?
That's what it,
Unless
that's what
it's a barn.
So
Could I
let's think about this, okay? So if I have a 700 square foot house, I can only have a 700 square foot accessory
You can have a
structure.
doghouse, right?
What's that?
Yes, you can have the equivalent of a doghouse.
Yeah, like,
It
so
has to be
that's exclusionary to begin with, right? You're
Right.
excluding, I get put into one corner because I only have a small house, whereas if I had a 3,000 square foot house, I could build a 3,000 square foot accessory structure. So, like, if it were up to me, I would say, let's get rid of the barn thing and just focus on the accessory structure. A barn is an accessory structure.
And then it's up to what the acceptable use is for wherever it is.
Yeah, and if you have to get if you want to get a home industry, you have to get a conditional use permit still, is that correct?
Yeah.
So I would say just eliminate the size.
So you're saying get rid
restriction.
of the subordinate
Yeah.
thing, make a barn an accessory structure,
Right.
and do it that way.
So
Yeah.
just think of it, take the barn out of the
Eliminate the sign.
equation.
Yeah. Just
Something
forget the
that
barn.
may happen, somebody has a tennis court, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they want to put a cover over the tennis court. That's an accessory structure, right? You gotta get a town permit. Wait, the tennis court's bigger than my house, I can't do it. So if they come before us, the DRB constantly put in a position of, do we want to make sense or do we abide by the rules? Right? And we try to abide by the rules, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
the rules are, we can't do that, right? We can't approve a covered tennis court. There's
Right.
nothing in the rules that allow us to do that. 'Cause
Correct.
It's bigger. It would be considered an accessory structure and it would be bigger than the house.
Mhm.
But I think one of the reasons this came up was an aesthetic sort of thing. Like, people are okay with the look of the barn, but if you were in a housing development, of 5 acres each house, maybe there are 10 houses in the development, and somebody was a car lover and wanted to put a metal building to house 10 cars on his property, that wouldn't be allowed right now because it's much larger than his house. So I think maybe the original intent of it was to keep accessory structures subordinate looking to
So
that.
then you have to come up with all sorts of regulations of what a barn is supposed to look like.
You would have to do that.
So
Or
that
you
to me is
could-
like, okay, so we're just designing this law for one instance that may happen in 10 years, right?
That's right.
So should we design the law or this bylaw? Should we come up with the right bylaw that looks at the most logical rule or that might touch on that one instance that somebody's going to be offended? And I say, you can't really do that.
What if we did what we wanted to do with ADUs, but the state wouldn't let us, and we gave a rule that said, you know how the state had the formula that you had to follow, you know, either this or that, and it was triggered off the primary residence, like there was sort of nothing we could do about it. But we all, if I'm remembering in conversation correctly, would have rathered a universal rule. So what if we, not tonight, because I want to make sure we stay on track to get through all 8, and then we can circle back. But like, what if we said, like, I'm just making up this number, Roy, an accessory structure can't be over 1,500 square feet or something, and then a real agricultural barn that's on a working farm is exempted by the state anyway, right? We don't have any control
That
over if
wouldn't have
the
fit with
Tisberts
Potlands,
want to
though.
put a new barn on their farm, right? Like that's not, we
That
don't have
wouldn't
any
have,
control.
but that wouldn't have fit with Potlands, correct? 1,500 square feet.
No, I'm literally
Yeah, but
making
what
up
they-
a number.
I know,
I'm just
I
making
know.
up a number
And I'm-
to make 2,500. Like, is that the way to think about it? The way we thought about ADUs? I'm just thinking.
Can
out
I-
loud.
But I
think
got
we should just
another, I got to
eliminate the
interject
size,
about the
period.
Potlands, because that was, they were going for an in-house business, right? Or for
Home industry.
the home industry, basically. So they had to, it's a conditional use to begin with. So it doesn't matter what the building is.
Why
or-
is it conditional use for a home occupation?
Could-
Home,
industry?
home,
Home industry.
home
You have to
industry
get,
is a little
you know,
different.
you can't just
It's not
apply
a-
for a building permit to build it and build it. It has to go in front of the DRB, right?
Yeah,
It
we
is.
we look at traffic, we look at
So-
wastewater
Right.
supply, water supply, wastewater disposal, water supply.
So it's
You know,
basically
noise.
irrelevant of what the building it is,
Yeah.
being put into.
Yeah.
So.
Because
it's
the
not even
business
good.
has to get the approval, you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if we lived in Woodstock or somewhere
Well-
and then we had all these design review, criteria we had to build around, then that would be one thing that we would be writing a law for, but we don't, that's
Yeah.
not where.
Well, I'm just
we're at.
wondering, is there a building, like, just use Penny's example, and maybe the answer is what you just said, David, no, maybe that's how people feel, but is there a size that we think you should not be able to build? What if I wanted to build a 15,000 foot airplane hangar next to my house just because I thought it'd be sweet and I would like it? Like, is that okay? Like, you know what I mean? Just for me.
Okay.
Like, is that okay? I know I'm asking.
Well,
You would have, one, you would have to have the land.
Either side.
You would have to have the land for the
I
airstrip.
purposely picked a ridiculous example.
But what about, in that line, what about if you're in a neighborhood where you can see your neighbors' houses, you all have 5 acres, 10 houses, and somebody wants to build a huge metal structure for their 16 cars right there, right off the road, right at the curb on their property.
Okay,
And
what about
And-
setbacks?
it's,
You have setbacks, right?
we have
Let's
setbacks.
just let
so-
them finish your thought.
So what do you, as a neighbor, think about that? Is that okay? That it's a variation of what Brian's saying, but maybe a little more realistic, because I actually knew somebody who wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So is that okay? Or if it were a wedding bar, so when we have to go through when they come through the DRB and we have this hearing, we have to base our decisions on something, and there is no design criteria. So if we say, there's no look, there's no aesthetic criteria.
Yeah, right.
So if we get rid of the limit of size, which I'm fine, I'm not even proposing one way or the other, it means that somebody could build a big structure next to you in your development, right beside you, that houses their cars or has batting cages, or it could be a great big metal building 3 times the size of their house. So is that okay?
Well, I guess I wouldn't like my neighbor if they did that.
Yeah.
So, but if I lived next door to them, it wouldn't be okay. But I guess if they're playing by the rules, then it is.
Yeah.
I mean, so what do we do about that? I mean, what if it looked like a barn? Would that be better? Or
I would get rid of the size entirely, and and I would allow the property owner to make the decision, make his own choice about what he wants to do with his property in that. You know, if it's something that does offend some neighbors, well, you know, that's his property, basically.
Chances are that's not gonna happen, but. it
Yeah,
might.
and it's very
So-
rare that example will come up. And it's simpler. Just keep it simple, basically. And the simplest thing is just eliminate the size.
That would solve the question.
Right, so we would solve this issue. I might be overstating the case, but if we said barn's an accessory structure and accessory structures can be whatever size you want, I'm not saying that that's the route everyone wants to take when we circle back, but that in theory would solve this issue. So if we wanted to do something along those, or we could do a size limit, but that's sort of the direction that starts to solve this one
Charlie,
way or
do
the
you see
other. Is that right?
Anything come to your mind about?
So simpler is better for us, right?
Yeah.
We can't design to one specific case, we have to do the broad thing. And potentially, you know, I like the idea of no size limit. Right, because the use, the structure is one thing, the use is different, and
Right.
we're commingling the two in this discussion. But the structure should be allowed to be whatever it needs to be,
Right.
as long as it conforms with the setbacks.
Right.
If a guy built a huge structure and then puts in, you know, wants to put 12 apartments in it, well, that's a different
Right.
thing. But right now, he's gonna park his 6 or 12 collector automobiles in it. Why not? He's got the money and he's got the land.
But if you wanted to do something noisy in there, like just to use an example of a real wedding venue, then
That's
that
a
gets a
use.
different level
That's
of
a
review
use.
because of the use,
Right.
not because of the building.
Yeah.
And we haven't caused any more problems for you,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Right, and we really would have no opinion on the building, except it might be that if there was some light, like overflowing to the neighbors or something, there might be some sort of light regulation, but that's the only thing that I can think of.
Yeah, well, it's sound.
Well, we do have
Sound, yeah.
light regulations.
And noise for sure.
And
right?
traffic.
Yeah, I mean.
But on the look of
2 or
the
3
building
pages
is, on the look of the building is what I meant.
I got a question. How does everybody feel about having regulations on how, and some type of structure on how buildings are supposed to look? I mean, just go around the table and see what everybody thinks maybe. And,
Design.
yeah, I mean, is that important? Do you feel that's important?
Do you want to start, David?
Complicated.
Any, or no?
I don't, there's no, where that becomes applicable is if you're in downtown Woodstock.
Yeah,
right.
If you're in downtown Winooski, believe it or not, they have a design review district that you have to conform with the streetscape, you know, so you have to go through the process on the site plan, and then you have to go through another process on the architectural look of the building.
Yeah.
And we're not that sophisticated here.
Right.
We can't even fill his own opening.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just be careful what you guys are
Yeah.
thinking about.
Okay, well, let's just.
I mean, you know,
drop
people
down.
don't move this far out to be overly regulated.
Yes,
Yeah,
That's
right.
my opinion.
True. I agree.
I agree.
We do have 2 historic districts, which, you know, if you were to ask the Historical Society, they might like to have some sort of
So there's
design
the
characteristics.
historic overlay, right?
Yeah,
You could create an overlay district that says the use, you know, must be compatible, or the look of the building, you know, now you're gonna get into
That's,
design
so-
it
review.
might be, but it might be something to think about. What about this, the new house that Michael Lang's mother-in-law lives in? I don't know her name, here in the center.
Across from the post office?
Across from the post office. I don't know how much room she has, but what if she were able to put up a big building to store her collectible cars in? And it was just a very simple, big building. Would that be acceptable in Underhill Center? Do you feel that's, or should it reflect what Sam was
Okay,
talking about?
so that's where setbacks come in. A big, huge building on that lot wouldn't meet the setbacks.
I don't know how much.
Well,
room
just
there
think
is.
of another lot where that
She's
might
got
work,
river
you
on
know?
one side behind her. She's got properties on other side. A building there wouldn't fit. It's
So
just.
if it wouldn't fit on any properties in the center, then it's moot. But I don't know all the properties in the center, and I don't know all the properties in the flats, whether there's enough room to put.
most of them are already less than the required zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out of conformance already, so.
So it'd be more restrictive on a smaller lot because the setbacks are the same. So I think,
Just bringing up that idea, that just something to think about. Whether in the historic district, it might be something to consider.
So let's just, so Penny and Charlie.
Historic district, that's going to impede the people that are in the historic district to act in a free way about their own houses. And so I don't know, I don't think we really have buildings in a cluster that are really that attractive, actually. So,
David, you're not gonna be the marketing person for Underhill. We are taking that title away from you right now. Just in the interest of Penny and Charlie not having to come back for a second meeting, I'm keeping the notes. I'll write them up and send them around. I think everyone probably will.
Well, do we want to go around the table and see how everybody feels, or is that not?
Well, I would like to get through all 8, just so they don't have to come back.
Oh, okay.
And,
All right, yeah.
and we've basically got an hour to do it. So
Yeah.
I've got notes, and I thought the next meeting, if it's okay with everyone can mull it over and we'll whip through these. And maybe to your point, we come back to Barnes and there's no objections and we're done, but I think we're gonna be pressed to get through all 8 in the next 55 minutes.
Okay.
So,
Good idea.
Penny, do you wanna?
Yeah, and just the last point that we won't discuss is that Andrew, this goes back to Andrew time. Andrew really thought that you folks should consider whether you just approve wedding barns as a use in certain districts, but that's
you
not
could do
really.
that too, but I don't think you should, I think the size thing is still an issue.
So it's almost as a separate issue. Do we want to allow or disallow wedding barns in
Right,
certain
it just
areas?
came up during that whole.
I almost consider that a separate issue because it's almost like a wedding facility. Whether it looks like a barn, if we make a barn an accessory structure,
Right.
is not relevant, really. So wedding facilities. I'll just make a note. Wedding facilities. What do we want to do? Okay.
I think the next one is number 17. I think it's a pretty easy
Subdivision
one.
standards.
Yeah, there's a section under subdivision called transportation facilities. So by definition, it's roads and highways, but it also can be bus terminals or airports. The regulations under that section are about roads and infrastructure and pedestrian walkways and that sort of thing. So I had a conversation with Andrew about maybe that could be changed, that section name, to something more user-friendly. Who would think to look under transportation facilities to talk about development roads or sidewalks? So that's just something for you to think about if you might want to change the name of it. Other towns there, it's called.
What is the?
Can you just say roads and sidewalks?
Yeah. Right.
So you're referring to the actual title of section 8.6?
Title of the section 8.6 is titled Transportation Facilities, and the A underneath it is access and driveways, and then there's development roads, pedestrian sidewalks. So maybe transportation facilities is not the best name for it. It's confusing.
So maybe we should rename this roads and pedestrian infrastructure, you're saying?
Something like that, yeah. So that's just the explanation of that one.
Or hovercraft parking.
And if you need to have a hovercraft, you need a place to put it, which means you need a
You need a
large
bigger
building.
The irregular shaped lots, I don't think I really need to go over tonight since time is tight. That was really just to let you folks know.
Well, can you let us know what regular shaped lot looks like?
Yeah,
In
so
Underhill.
there is a definition for.
Yeah, what is it? Let's go through it.
It's not actually a definition. Under 8.2F5, which is on page 151, it says lot layout, and this is under subdivision review standards, which is section A. Avoid irregularly shaped lots. For example, so this is the only part that's defined in here, with curves, jogs, dog legs, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Unless warranted due to topographic or other physical site constraints, or to minimize the fragmentation of natural, scenic, or cultural resources. So we have, I was talking with Dan Lee today, and Dan was saying he's a real stickler about this because when he came to the planning commission, or the select board, I can't remember, he came to the planning commission to get interviewed or to see what was going on way back when he first came, and there was someone said there was some sort of site plan on the or map on the screen or somewhere, and they said, oh, this is irregular. This would never pass. The planning commission would never allow this. There was some lot that had some irregular boundary lines on it. So that's been Dan's mission from that point on, to make sure that the DRB does not approve irregular shaped lots. So I just wanted you to know, I have some links here that if you clicked on the link, you'd see a lot came into us as preliminary, and we said, no, you can't do that. So we sent it back, and they had to have more regular shaped lots.
Is this something we should care about, the shape of a
Or
lot?
maybe, or
I'm
can
not
you
trying
just
to be
decide?
We care about it all the time.
Yeah,
No,
but
but-
can you decide when you're doing your review, can you decide to just,
So
that you gotta
so we-
redraw the lot line on that?
Well, no, Dan loses 6-1, right? Everybody else doesn't care what the lot looks like.
Yeah.
Except Dan's got a pet peeve about irregular shaped lots. So I said, Dan, tell me what a regular shaped lot, something that's normal should look like. And since we can't define that, we've sort of diffused that argument, but it's still in the regs, so.
It still comes up. It still
Would
comes
you-
up as something we have
Would
to-
you say this shouldn't even be in the regs if you were asked what your opinion is?
I defer to you guys. What's the purpose of it?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah,
Why is it there?
I know when we were talking about boundaries for accessory structures, when you have these irregular shaped lots, it's really hard to place a building in the right location and satisfy all those. So basically, when you do a subdivision and you create an irregular lot, you are creating problems for future landowners, basically, in trying to figure out what to do with this lot that, doesn't.
But you
Makes it
have
hard
to
to do.
define what's irregular. What's
Well, I have in
irregular?
mind this long, thin one that comes to a point. And, if you divide that, what do you do with that? I think Boris had a good example of a lot where, you can hardly put anything because it doesn't fit,
But you're getting a subdivision approved. So the approval of the subdivision has to allow, am I mistaken, for the setbacks on each lot.
But you don't know what that future landowner's gonna build.
I don't care. If you've got an irregular lot, but there's setbacks,
They have to build it within the
they have
setback.
to build it within the setbacks. I don't care what they're gonna build. If the setbacks are there, they have to build within the setbacks. So if it points at the very end and it can't meet the setbacks, well, guess what? You're not gonna put the house there. You're gonna put it here.
Well,
Also, the land in Underhill is so irregular
Yes.
that the natural property lines oftentimes follow the contours or streams or ledges or whatever, basically working around
Or
all
rock
this
walls
stuff.
or.
So you end up with irregular lots just because the land is forcing you to go this way or that way. So I would say again, just let the designer of the lots figure out what's best, basically.
It sounds like this isn't having a lot of, I mean, we obviously should clean it up and get back to you, but it sounds like if Dan's being outvoted 6-1 on every one, that there's not actually much practical impact to this. It's the
doesn't-
reg should be cleaned up.
Yeah, he doesn't bring it up as much because
Okay,
Right.
had to.
There's no point.
Yeah.
Well, no, because he
It's
got
just,
shot
it's
down
just another
6-1.
thing we have to review.
It's a
If it's
cleanup item.
important, we're reviewing it. If
Yeah.
it's not, then why review it, sort of thing.
there's links that Penny's put into this document
Yep.
that'll bring you to a particular case that we had to deal with this on.
Yeah.
And, person had 100 acres of land, right?
So the
Wanted to chop
Evans,
off
for
10.
instance,
Did we all
go to
get
the
that
top,
link?
top one
It's
there,
in
Brian,
there.
so they
Yeah.
give you
No, no,
right
no.
there.
We all sent it.
So this is what they
No.
file is an owner's trash.
Let's try the
Is
other
it
one.
really? No, that wasn't, no, what, sorry. I didn't-
Well, this one's gonna work.
This one works, but this looks irregular and actually is.
It will not
But
let
we
me
left it there.
Zoom in. Now, is it zooming in on the screen? When I do that?
Just unclick this.
is this
Oh, there
the
we go.
whole thing is the irregular lot?
Well, this actually kind of looks irregular. See the red line?
Yeah.
This was not really to highlight the irregular status of this. This was necessary because we approved it, because the land to the right was, that's all steep slope.
Sure.
And they were thinking of putting a cabin at the plateau at the top. And they needed a septic leach field, which could not fit on the steep slope. So they had to go down the hill to a spot where they could put the leach field. So that's why this is irregular. But why I am pointing this particular one out, see how the top line, horizontal line, takes an angle down?
Yep.
That happens in a number of engineering drawings because they're crossing the contours perpendicularly. So you might be looking at that and saying, why doesn't that horizontal line go straight across? But the reason is that it goes straight across on flat land and then it goes straight up the hill.
Sure.
But it's following the contours.
So just look, I know it's hard to see, but if you look up in the upper right of that drawing, you can see the green section.
Yep.
And if you zoom in there, that lot is what we started with. Right?
Well, let me,
I couldn't figure out that.
Yeah, well, let me move over to the right corner.
Yeah.
Sorry, that made it worse.
But you can see up there that.
Yeah, it's a.
Oh, it kind of goes
shape.
around.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what we start with, right? And,
Okay.
and that's indicative of some of the larger parcels that are left in town. That they're
So what was the issue with this one?
just the wording.
I'm just illustrating that. That was my issue.
Yeah.
I
Just
think
the
he
wording.
did our
you know.
plumbing,
The wording was what?
Marty Basil.
Irregular.
Oh,
Yeah.
Unless there's two Marty Basils, which I
I
don't.
doubt it.
That is right. Hold on, I really want to
Don't
get
you need
you
him
a
to-
link.
Sometimes you really can't come to a solution on that. You're going to have irregular lots that make sense. And you're
Brian,
gonna
can
have
you
people
try
that'll do
that
certain
Evans
things on
again?
their
Yeah,
I
of
think I
course.
just,
You wonder why.
oh darn
And
it, no, I
just
didn't. I'm
happens
sorry,
that
I
way.
didn't
Yeah.
fix it. I want to, the Evans is actually pretty notable. I just want to show
Yeah.
you. I had the wrong link to it, so I just want to
Did you
put
put
the
the right,
link on it.
put the right link?
I think I just did,
Try it again.
but oh, no, hold on. I got to hit apply. Okay, now try it. No, really? Oh, give it a second. I've got it here.
Brian, can you share this with all of us after?
Yeah, I'll send the whole thing
Yeah.
around. I was anticipating us going through it all on this
Piece of paper.
nice little PDF and then sending it around, but that
So I
plan did not
can
work.
get it, Brian. Try it. Maybe it just needed a minute to update, I think.
I think
Yeah,
it's
that's
working
the
this time.
parcel right there, right?
So, right,
That's a town road on the bottom that you see. The red is the existing boundary. And these folks have, what was it, 150 acres or?
something like that, yeah.
And, a lot of it's in forest management plan. It ticked a lot of boxes in terms of habitat blocks and things like that, so we made them go through.
Where is this?
This is near John Leisure's house.
Oh, okay.
Mountain Road.
Mountain Road.
Right, yeah. And it had been logged in accordance with the forestry management plan. And there was a couple interesting things about this one because the habitat block said, we've got vegetation and wood growth that supports this. But the forestry management plan said you should cut this, this
Yeah,
is.
right.
So you have two studies that are conflicting with one another, which was the first time that ever happened to me. But you can see the blue line is the rectangle that we made them create.
No, the blue line is the rectangle that they came to us
Oh,
with.
that's- okay.
And if you go to the next page, if you would, Brian, this is showing, this just, again, you can see here that there is off of the bottom right corner, it says logging road. Can you see that, Brian? How that is,
The little dash line.
it's a, yeah, that double dash line, bottom right, says logging road.
Oh.
Right there.
Where the cursor is
Yeah.
right now.
So they were, at this time, this is at least what they told us. I think Dan was not convinced of it, but that they wanted that logging road to stay with the mother property so that they could use that logging road to get to the upper part of the property.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can zoom back out again, you will be reminded of, there's a little corner there that up in the upper left, you can see with the blue line, see how that, it creates a little dog leg in the mother property.
Oh, yeah.
Upper left.
Yeah.
So if you go down to the next, so this is what they came back to us with. We didn't allow them to keep that logging road on the mother property. We made them connect those lines.
Okay.
That was to placate them.
That was to
Regular
placate,
shape.
well, you know what though, to be fair, that was to placate what we felt were the regulations. We agreed with him that the regulations said no irregular shapes, avoid irregular shapes. So that was a way to avoid.
So basically, they'll have to cut a new road though in order to access.
They'll have to
cut a new road or have to get an easement.
They'll have to get a right of way.
Yeah.
So, and then I suggested to them, well, could you just get a right of way? And there's some funky thing that I didn't understand, that since they own both properties, they can't get a right of way to themselves. Once they sold the property, then they could give a right of way, deed it to the next person, but they couldn't actually.
It's all in a trust too, right?
Probably, yeah. Okay, so that was just an example. Just what that regulation means for us.
So irregular shaped lots. Okay, got it.
Charlie's going to be able to talk to this.
Definition of utility.
Yeah, so we had
Number 20.
We had a hearing, we had an application on this prior property that you saw, Marty Baslow's, with the septic line that had to go down the steep slope. And we have some pretty stringent requirements on steep slopes, down to a level place for a leach field. So the engineer successfully argued that the wording in 3.18.b.1.c, which is on page 56, allowed him to do that. And
But he ran a septic line.
a septic line.
And he called it a utility.
Charlie was not here at the time.
No,
He was
issued a building permit. And he convinced the zoning administrator that his septic, the line coming out of the septic tank down to his leach field was a utility line, and therefore he was granted. So this thing shows up on our desk because he wants to subdivide the property.
Oh, okay.
Right, and we're like, well, how did that get there?
So this is the exemption from the steep slope restrictions. And the exemption says, and to me it's clear, but not clear enough. Utilities, including telecommunication facilities, power generation facilities, and transmission lines regulated by Vermont Public Service Board. Those are exempt from the steep slope requirements. So he was given that exemption because the engineer argued, apparently, that the septic line was a utility. I don't think that's what this means. I think it means utilities such as telecommunications facilities, not including So the engineer said, well, yeah, this is a utility, and the regs say it includes telecommunication facilities, but it doesn't have to be something like it. So I think it's that word including needs to change to such as, or Charlie needs to give you a definition of what utility is, what they're talking about.
So you all want it to be would you want it to be, an alternative way to do it, Penny, which you probably tell me, well, maybe it's not broad enough. You could just not say utilities such as, and you could just say telecommunications, power, and whatever the other one was.
I don't know.
And then it's a very tight universe of things. Is that too tight, the universe of things?
I don't know.
What about like some wind energy or, something in the future?
So that's governed by the PUC, so that would be exempt.
But I got a question about this. The septic line was there because it was designed by the engineer, which the DRB or the town does not have any input into a septic system as long as it's designed by a certified engineer. Is that correct?
So we don't govern and design the septic. We have a 25-foot setback in our regs from a property line for a leach field. But if they've got to blast through a restricted zone, in this case steep slopes, we can claim jurisdiction. This is the problem with an experienced zoning administrator.
Yeah, it doesn't know all
He
the
doesn't know
rules.
all his little ins and
Yeah,
outs.
right, yeah.
I mean, this is a guy across the street from you who did this. Michael Moore, right?
Oh,
You know, so, I mean,
So,
he put his septic field down in the valley.
and the engineer designed it
And
that
the
way.
engineer designed it that way, which you kind of got to go wherever the soil is for the leach field.
Right.
But, you know, this is the other thing. Well, does it make sense to go straight down the steep slopes, or does it make sense to circulate, draw a circuitous way around the steep slopes?
So you don't disturb the
So you don't
steep
sus-
slope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Huh.
So
So
also,
the engineer, it's actually, it's on the, you
It's on the
could have told him
engineer.
to redo it
Yeah.
because the engineer should have known that.
Yeah.
He can't
Yeah.
disturb a steep slope.
They need to dig his way out of the hole by making this argument. It seems.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
All right.
But so the only reason we became aware of it is the guy came in here and wanted to do the accessory apartment in his house that was under construction, right? And subdivide off another chunk of land.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do one on one side, one on the other. And we're like, well, how did that get there?
That's right, that's right, yes, that's right.
And no, you can't do that. And the neighbors to the south, to the north of him, along the same side of the road, did a property line adjustment.
Right, yeah, yeah.
So he was happy. He got some money for his land. Didn't have to do much. And still came back and tried to subdivide something else. And we shot him down on that because he had to go through all this huge amount of steep slopes.
Yeah,
I shared the driveway design with you guys.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yep.
well, suppose you have a community system of some kind, and you've got a utility pathway that goes through there. It would make sense for a septic line or water line or something to follow that path, rather than limiting the properties around the utility line.
But so the key word there is community as opposed to individual.
Yeah.
So how would you then write the reg about that? So if instead this wasn't just going to one house, a septic line to one house private residence, but was going down steep slopes for a 7-lot development to a community septic, is that allowed?
Well, according to our regs, no. Right?
Well-
But if it made the most amount of sense, then the DRB is put in a position of blatantly ignoring the regs to approve the development, because that's the only thing that's hanging it up. And that's a position we get put into a lot.
Wait, so that feels like, just from my understanding, so that feels like maybe is that a separate issue than this one? This sounds like someone who was just trying to be cute with the rules because he screwed up.
Didn't know.
Yeah, but so what's the one that someone comes in with a subdivision? Is that the same
No,
issue?
yeah, for me it is. I mean, if we're saying a septic line down a steep slope shouldn't be approved because the engineer was slipping this in as a utility, is it just a utility because, is it not a utility because it's just a single family residence? If it were a community, if it were 7 houses and a common septic line, can that now go down steep slopes because it's more of a utility? Or is it not? I mean, these things do
Got
come
it.
up.
So the big issue here is, do septic lines, are septic lines allowed to go down steep
Yeah, what's
slopes?
the difference between a septic line and a power line? If
Right.
you're blasting it in and you have a trench for it, you
Well,
get the same
right.
amount of impact.
But a power line can go overhead, right?
But what if the one is underground?
Yeah, septic line's always got to be underground.
Right, but if you're allowing utilities, are you saying it's gonna be overhead or can it be underground as well?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So what's the reason for opposing the septic line going down the utility?
Disturbing the
Steep
steep
slope.
slope,
Well, if it's
cutting all the trees down and
well,
to
if
make it
you know, if
happen.
the engineer says this is fine, it will work.
Yeah, but
Engineers
it's-
mistaken.
So it's a conflict in our zoning regs that we've run into in the past.
Yeah.
So
So-
bringing it to your guys' attention.
Remember last meeting we had when the woman was here about wetlands and
Yeah.
and whatever else.
The river hydrologist.
Yeah, now remember when she talked about the subdivision in Jericho where the water
Yes.
was now coming up over and the septic tanks were right in the area of the floodwaters?
Right.
So that would be a reason that you would hesitate to do something like that, because it could create.
Well, that's on a
But that's not a
floodplain.
steep slope. That's
No,
a
it's not a
wetland.
steep slope, but what I'm saying
It's
is
in the
the
same spirit.
consequences of something happening there could be similar.
I think we all know there's disagreements on steep slopes on the planning commission, so maybe let's not go too deep on this one tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
so-
come back to this,
Yeah.
because I think,
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues with steep slopes, and we live in a mountainous town.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to tackle steep slopes.
It-
I think we all know that, and this probably falls right in that bucket.
We'll
right?
put you on that, David. You can be on the steep slope.
He's still on the accessory dwelling unit, come on.
Working on steep slopes, or you're trying to put David physically in a steep slope? Right? What do you
No,
say? Okay, we've got that. We understand that one, Penny. It's on the
Okay.
list. So-
Development review process. This has to do with the number of days prior to a hearing for the exhibit submittals. Currently, or what has been happening is we've been, depending on which zoning administrator we have, we are accepting submittals sometimes right up to the day or a couple days before.
Your meeting.
Our hearing. So back in the day with Andrew, those were the Cadillac days. So Andrew would compile everything, get us everything 10 days before the hearing, so that we had time, busy people working, reviewed
Yeah,
on,
of
we had
course.
2 weekends that we could have the option for reviewing. But that's fallen apart. And I know Charlie has some different opinions on it, but I'll just tell you what the zoning administrators have been doing and recommending. So the DRB needs time to review the documents, and Brad feels that the hearings have to be warned 15 days ahead. So the public sees that warning. You go into the post office and you see that there's going to be a hearing. You, Mr. Public, should be able to go onto the website and get those documents right then. So he feels that for hearings that are warned 15 days ahead, all the application materials should be in. Things do, come in from time to time. A neighbor will write a letter, an email, or something. That'll be another exhibit that gets added. But that's his opinion. He feels that we should follow the state statutes. The state statutes are a little odd. They say that certain hearings have to be warned 15 days ahead, and other ones only 7 days ahead. 7 days ahead is site plan review and preliminary subdivision review. 15 is everything else. So I'm on the DRB as an alternate right now, but having been on it for years as a full-time member, I like the 15 days for everything. It gives us the time we need.
Do we have to follow what the state says and do the?
No, actually, the state says 7 days minimum for
Oh,
the
okay.
preliminary, so they don't say only 7 days. So let's see, there's one other thing that I want, did I? Oops, sorry. So that's mainly what I wanted to say, and Charlie has and then one other thing is that in the regs, it says that a sketch plan letter will be issued within 15 days of the end of the hearing, or of the decision, the end of the hearing. What is it, Charlie? I can't
So
remember.
if we vote on the sketch plan at the first of the month,
Right,
but we have until the 16th of the month to get the letter out.
right.
And so this is a function of not having a full-time Zoom.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's not enough time, especially when the approval comes, the week before Christmas. We've got 2 days off for Christmas and we got New Year's off, and so I don't see it as a big issue, but it's come up a couple of times.
What would you suggest there would make everybody happy?
Brad suggests 15 business days for the sketch plan letter. And I've got that in here. For the other hearings, Charlie, 15 days you were feeling for everything?
Yeah, just 15 days prior to the hearing for the
To just
warning.
keep it simple?
So what would happen is somebody would say, oh, I want to get on the hearing for the 12th, and, or I want to get hearing on the 18th, and,
Mhm.
you know, the ZA would say, okay, you got to get me all the materials by the 3rd.
Mhm.
Oh, I'll give you 2/3 of it, and my engineer says he'll get it to me before that.
Yeah.
So, it's not happened lately because what I've asked Brad to do is whenever he gets application material, just put it on the website, the town website. Nick was kind of collecting all of this stuff and holding it and not putting it on the website until his report was ready. And his report wasn't ready until Monday afternoon before the hearing.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't quite fair to anybody,
Yeah.
including DRB members.
Yeah.
So I was like, look, Nick, put the hearing, put any submittal packages put up here. If you deem the application to be complete enough to schedule a hearing, that's fine. The DRB will review the evidence submitted and say, yes, we've got a complete application, or no, we need more information on a particular issue.
Okay.
So Brad thinks that it would be just peachy to have that requirement of having all the application materials in 15 days prior to the hearings in the regulations.
Okay.
Because ZAs, don't always
ZAs come and
feel
go.
comfortable. They come and go.
Yeah,
So it
of
should
course.
actually be in the. That's 15 days.
I mean, this
before
one
the
doesn't
hearing.
feel like it takes much debate. We'll just, I mean,
The-
you guys volunteer your time to do all this. We'll clean up the regulations unless anyone has a strong.
So 15 days ahead, is that 15 business days, or is it
No.
just the after that's 15 business days?
The 15 business days
Yeah.
is just Brad's talking about the
Sketch plan.
sketch plan letter. So there's
Yeah.
a sketch plan meeting.
Yeah,
So that's sort of a separate thing that maybe
I
Charlie
think it's
doesn't think
one
is.
with the 15 business days, it forces us to get a decision and get a letter out.
You think it's better? to do
I
that?
don't think we should change it,
Change it, all right.
but that's my opinion.
Wait, what do you think it should be, Charlie?
It's fine as it is.
15
For
days.
the
15
sketch plan
15
letter.
regular
days
days.
is 15 days, right?
Yeah, 15
Okay.
days is 2 weeks, 15 business days is 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So we leave that.
That's for
It's
the
just
sketch
my-
plan letter.
Okay. Yep.
But if you,
Got it.
if you read the matrix, it's more clear.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, there's also, I think, a typo in the regs that you want to look at, that you're referencing an act that has to do with the capital budget and program, which I think you've got, it's just a typo. And so that's explained in there.
Where are you talking about?
4464, VSA section 4464.
Right, so I think it's just.
Oh,
something that's
clean up
needed.
typo. Okay. Clean up. 4464 typo. Okay.
It should be 4464 and instead it's whatever else it was there.
It's wrong in regs.
That's
Okay.
what that one right, 529 for reference to the act section.
Okay. All right. So where does that, oh shoot, where does that take us, Brandy?
I think 22. I'm not very good with my finger.
References
Why does
to
it keep
what?
doing that?
The act,
The act.
which is the Municipal Planning and Development Act. Can't see.
I don't know why I need to move the cursor. Sorry guys, 1 second. There we go.
I think we're on 22.
22.
Home industry. Charlie, you may have some differing opinions about this. So right now, home industry in the regs, and I give the table and the places that you can reference this. There's a connection to home ownership on the same parcel. This came up between me and Andrew. We talked about this. So Pete lives with his parents, and he starts a printing shop and an accessory structure as a home industry. Pete would like to move out of the house and still run the shop. The printing shop is very successful and valued in the community. So per section 4.11D1, a home industry is tied to the residents of the dwelling. So can Pete actually leave his parents' property
Wow.
and live somewhere else and commute to run the shop? He owns the shop and runs it. He doesn't live on the property anymore. Can Pete's parents sell their house to new owners who don't want to run a printing shop? And Pete somehow lease the printing shop space from the new owners, and even though he lives off-site and continues to run it, is there an avenue for Pete to maintain ownership of the business? Or will it have to close because no one in his family lives in the adjacent house on the same lot? There is a section in the regs that motor vehicle sales and service facility in Underhill Flats District can be reviewed as a principal use, a conditional use. So it wouldn't have to adhere to the home industry standards of the ownership of the house and the home industry.
Did this come up as an issue?
No,
Oh.
it's just a potential issue for people to think about.
Okay.
So just take, for example,
It's a tricky one.
Phil Cochran's garage.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
it. My
Yeah.
mechanic.
Mine too. Phil can't sell that garage. Yeah. That's not
Charlie's
allowed.
too.
Maybe we can create some sort of grandfathered clause, you know.
Well, that's kind of how we
Would be.
look at it now. It's grandfathered, right?
Mm.
You know, if you wanted to sell the business to somebody, we'd still call the business grandfather.
Right.
Make you change the name, fine. But,
So would that be,
But
okay,
what
we
if-
can talk
so,
about that.
I mean,
after.
what if, you know,
Well,
Phil's
that's kind of
parents,
an interesting.
what if Phil's parents moved to Florida and want to sell the house, but Phil wants to keep running his automotive shop and we all want him to keep running his automotive shop? Is there a
and
way
we have
for
to
him to do
blatantly ignore the rules because it doesn't have enough frontage on the town road
Yeah.
to subdivide the house from the garage, and there's
But
a
it-
lot of issues.
But even if we could, it would, can it be a standalone? I don't think it can be a standalone business in that zoning district. It would still have to be a home industry.
So we had a discussion here last time I was through.
Yeah,
We talked about there's like, you can't have a business without a resident.
Oh, right.
and I don't think that's the way it,
Was intended.
no, in the village districts, you should be able to have commercial.
Yeah.
In the
Business,
village
you would-
districts, you can. I mean, in
Okay,
some of the
well,
village districts.
before, there, it had to be a home industry.
I don't know. I know in the village district and the flats, you can have a motor vehicle sales or service business. I don't know what other businesses you can have a
You got a
standalone.
pretty good carve out for Alexander's garage.
Yeah,
Probably, right.
Okay.
Okay, so the next
We
one
understand that one.
is home industry. It's just better wording for the table 4.2. So I think you could just read through what I've got here and hope, I think that makes sense that sometimes we've had some confusion with the table, just realized it could be better worded.
Okay.
24 is surface waters and setbacks.
Surface waters and setbacks.
This was prompted by this diagram that I feel has always been lacking. A couple of us feel it's always been lacking. Diagram 3.1. If you can click on, I don't know if you can.
Oh,
click
this
on
is
that.
the edge of a stream, and where does the
This
edge
is
of a
the
stream
slope,
start?
top of bank, top of slope.
Yeah.
So it's the only illustration in our
Scroll
regs,
down and you'll see it.
and it's just
Oh.
useless, basically.
Yeah.
So that I had been looking up a long time ago, some different options. The New York State has one very much like this, but it actually describes that a slope is something over 45 degrees and a bank is something under 45 degrees. And so you measure it from the mean water line or whatever. But these days with so much flooding and water resiliency issues, lots of states and towns take different tacks when they talk about how you measure 25 feet or 50 feet from rested vegetation, or you measure from this or that. So I just thought that you might want to talk to Stacy Pomeroy and think about how should people measure setbacks from streams. And you remember she talked about a corridor that they have as an overlay. And I don't know if that's something you might want to reference in the regs, because to me, it sounds like a good idea on one hand, but on the other hand, how do you actually know if you were a homeowner who wanted to put a shed, how would you know where you're measuring from looking at an overlay on a map, and how old is the map? In fact, this A&R map that I was looking at, the Jericho Riverside area, and David Villeneuve's house is still there where he had his office. So that map is something like 10 years old. So I don't even know how up to date it is and how appropriate it is. So it's just something to think about, if you would mind. I think minimally it would be great to change that illustration or add to it. And if you want something drafted, I'd be happy to do that for you. But at the very least that, and then you may want to think about, is that the best way to handle it?
Okay.
So is that kind of like when an engineer has to define what is floodplain? They have to decide where
Yeah, sort of.
so, okay.
But we even thought for a while, I remember we were asking one of our engineers, what does this mean, top of bank and top of slope? And he said, well, if you look here, that side is the top of slope and this side is the top of bank, thinking that every waterway must have a top of slope and top of bank, and it doesn't mean that at all. It just means in the top of bank situation, you measure from this point. In a top of slope situation, you measure from this point. But what does top of bank mean and top of slope? There is no definition for that. That's the other thing. There's no definition for that, but in the definitions, there's under stream bank, it talks about top of slope and top of bank and what it means. So I think at the very least in the definitions, you should have top of bank, C, stream bank, top of slope, C, stream bank, so people know to go there to read a little bit more about it. So it just needs, I've explained it all there, so it just needs better, it just needs to be better.
Well, do you think that, an angle, does that kind of resolve the problem?
It may.
The 45-degree angle that you mentioned?
It may. And you'll see, David, I just put a link to a couple of diagrams that you could maybe snag from another town.
Yeah.
The angle may be all that's needed. The last one is accepted agricultural practices. That is not a term that's used by the state anymore, AAPs, and it's throughout the regs. The terminology now is RAPs. They're required agricultural practices. And I put the two documents that the state currently uses.
So it's a matter of updating AAP to RAP.
I think so.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Penny.
Right now.
Thank you,
That's
Charlie.
awesome. That's all?
It's all for
Well,
right now.
there's 25, we only went through 8.
Yeah. I'll keep working
Yes,
on it.
smart mouth. What are you gonna do with
So,
the other 17 that are coming our way, Roy?
You'll be here to explain those to us too, right?
We're the ones that write them and we've got to
Penny
explain them.
did most of the work. Well, all
Thank
of
you
the
so
work,
much,
I guess. Did all of it. Not most of it, she did all of it. So thank you, Penny, for.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm happy to. I started this many years ago
Well,
and just lazily did not flesh it out.
Actually, we've already dealt with another one though, Roy. Number 18 says trails, bridges over waterways, which we
Yeah,
did. That's,
yes. So you did look
marking that
great.
one
That's
off.
out.
Okay, this is great. Thank you.
Okay, and I will keep working on this and I'll put a
Thank you,
date on
Penny.
the ones that I'm revising. So I would imagine it's going to take you a little, I mean, you're going to need
This'll be
to
a
dig
couple
into this
meetings
for
and-
a. Okay.
So this is a live document, right? So any.
Just
updates.
keep logging back in. And
Yeah,
checking.
any updates that Penny does, like you saw how it worked before. All
Yeah,
you had to do is refresh.
Yeah.
And you got the right update.
yeah, this is great.
And I'm trying to put a date on things now when I revise them or put any information in, so you'll know that that's new information.
And we'll make sure after we get through these, we'll make sure you all are in the loop too as to.
So when we change these, or when we,
I don't really want to, you mean their document?
yeah,
No, I thought what we would do, if it's okay, is we'll do it the way we were doing the other ones, which is
don't we have to?
we have to do a little memo to Brad that says like, this is what we want to do, and he has to send it to the town lawyer. So I don't know, well, it's a good question.
Does it have
Let's
to
think
go in front of
through
the
it.
voters?
They ultimately Brad wants to send them all to the voters eventually. It's a matter of consolidating these though. Let's think about the most efficient way to do this. It's not like we want a separate memo on every one. That's a lot of memos.
Is it morning already?
All right, well, we'll think about the best way to do it.
There a long
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Okay, and there is a final column
Oh,
that says
yeah.
resolution, in case
Oh,
you
so
folks
we
wanted to, you could expand that.
No,
In case
we
you wanted
can-
to put anything.
We'll do that
there,
in here for
yeah,
sure. And
okay.
then we've got to come up with some way too that we're going to consolidate these where it's easy to present to the voters to actually get them approved. And the goal for that, per Brad, was the general election in November. Like we're going to try to get everything consolidated in one big lump and send it.
In November, I thought it would have had to have been town meeting, but. Okay.
We're not going to make it.
No, we're going, I thought we were going next time.
Oh, did we decide next town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. So the plan with Brad is next town meeting. Let me restate that.
Well, there's just such a hearing process.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. But we're also trying to do everything in one fell swoop, basically.
Which I think is great.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Yeah.
laboring through this with us. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for laboring
Yeah.
through everything you do.
Yeah, this is awesome. Okay.
Yeah, for us, this was the easy part.
Yeah. Well, maybe planning commission, everyone just, I'll type this up and send it around, and I'll send around the link to Penny's spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And then let's just start working our way through these in order next meeting.
Yeah.
Just in the order they were in the spreadsheet. Okay.
And Brian,
Sounds
do you have a facility with the Google Sheets and Google Doc sort of thing? So when you give
I don't
permission.
know if I have a facility, Penny. I would say I'm
Is it a utility?
minimally competent. Is it a utility? That's a wonderful question. I would describe myself as minimally competent. I will figure it out.
Okay, it just says
Not I will call you crying.
commenter instead
Yeah.
of editor. That's the
Okay,
big thing.
you put that in the email,
Yeah, okay.
so, yeah, okay. All right, does anyone have anything else? No. Otherwise, I guess, I don't think it makes sense to start on these with 8 minutes left, so we'll probably just start next meeting. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? No one? Everyone wants to stay?
I just want to ask a question before we do that.
Yeah,
Did you
of course.
get the PDF I sent from Stacy?
Yes.
It was huge, so I wasn't sure if
No,
you got
we got it.
Yeah.
It came through? Okay.
Oh, Charlie, we need to make sure to sign out of your,
Yeah, if you just go to the Google there, Chrome, somewhere up there, up in the upper,
yeah. Oh, what's,
see where my face is?
yeah.
Just click sign out.
Oop.
Oh, Charlie, that was nice of you.
Thank you, Charlie. Signed out. Okay, good.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Where
Let
there's
me
a will,
get,
there's a risk.
let me get the main go-to-meeting back up so we can stop recording and stuff. And do the adjourn. I don't know. Where is this thing?
G, hit the G.
That's the page. Thank you, Charlie. Are you coming every week?
I kind of like the DRB schedule. Sometimes we don't have any hearings for a couple of months.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
David?
Second.
Thank you, Bart. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good night, everyone.